Leon's Gunners Collective. Back at it, you already know. It's for you haters though. That don't like me. Because I really don't give a bye. All that is, you can tell by that thumbnail right there, this is the one incident that changed everything. Now, I've always told you the story in a Menudo style direct fashion about my pull-up to CYA, about my pull-up to Fred C. Nellis, which was located in Whittier, down south in the Sud, right? And I don't say it to disrespect. When I tell my stories, I don't tell them to disrespect the gente down south. I just state facts, man. I don't state frivolous facts, and I don't put too much on it, and I don't add preservatives, and I don't do any of that. What I do is I keep it guard. Bitch, I said I keep it real, right? I keep it real, and that's just based on the fact that I'm only going to tell you what I lived through and the realness. Now, at the same time, many of things occurred, many of things happened, and timelines are what make everything distinctive, right? They're what make everything relevant. Okay, I can't speak on it if I wasn't there at the exact moment, but I could tell you the story. I could tell you what I heard on the curb, the swerve, and I can keep it real. One thing I will say is this: when we pulled up, we were a bunch of little kids that didn't know what we were doing. We were a bunch of little kids that had one thing and one thing in mind, and that was to get there, pull up, and pull out, get on. Our whole initiative that we were taking was to not establish a stronghold there. What was to get back up north there. We needed to go home. So that was scared. They were doing the same thing down south. The Southsiders or Sureños used to pull up to the north, and their whole goal was to get back home. Now, of course, administration dictates your program. There's nothing you can do about it. And it seems in 1991, 92, when they threw Norteños down south in Nellis, this was an experiment. This was an experiment to see if North and South could let everything go and finally collab on some things that they could finally program together. Now, of course, prior to the Norteños pulling up in Nellis, they pulled out to Paso. Now, Dubs from Dubs Channel was in Paso when this happened. And quietly as it's kept, when the Norteños were placed there, of course, immediately the Southsiders got off. They already knew. See, administration, the cops, the GSs, the COs, whatever you want to call them, would let you know who was pulling up because they didn't want to do paperwork because they didn't want to do their pinchy job. So in order to not have to do that, what they would do was they would let you know, hey, look, the Vatos are pulling up and the Vatos are going to continue to pull up. And what you guys need to do is handle your business, but do it not on my shift. You know, that's the old thing. Hey, don't do it on my, do it, but don't do it on my shift because nobody wants to work harder than they have to work. So of course, when the Norteños put up to Paso, Southsiders were getting off. What eventually happened over a few days, not even a long time, was they placed all the Norteños on one building. Okay, they placed them on one building because they kept getting off with the South. The South kept getting off on them. So administration, it didn't work out. It didn't quite work out in Paso, this experiment being the first place they placed Norteños down south. So what they did was they separated them, segregated them, and the Norteños were able to struggle and survive and do their thing on their own, compa. And they went as so far as to having them go to night school, having them go to church at night, just totally separating them from each other. And it worked out. It worked out for a little bit. We were hearing this while I was in NR, which is NRCC in Sacramento, the reception. We were hearing, hey, Norteños are placed in Paso now. You might go there. If you go there, get off where you're mad at. That's what we were always told. Get off, get off, get off, get off. And why? That's all you wanted to do. Establish your name, your reputation, and get off anyway. So that was music to a Huelga bird's ears. But one thing is for sure, when they slid my box under my door to Transpac to put all my property in to get on down the road, I hit that bus to FCN, which was known as Fred C. Nellis. Now, of course, getting there, I didn't know what to expect. One thing I knew for sure was I was in no man's land, and Chucky was about to get up and Spider was about to get down. And of course, I was just a young Norteño in the mix that didn't know no better, but one thing I knew for sure was I was not going to go out like no sucker or no punk. So I've heard a lot of conversations and a lot of people that seem biased to me. Oh, the Norteños never pulled up, or oh, they never handled their business. So that's wrong, Holmes. That's wrong. Look, one thing is for sure, we did pull up. You know, we did handle our business to the best of our ability. We did get down for ours, and we didn't, you know, just lock it up, or there was no PC here at that time. There was no protective custody. You couldn't just lock it up and say, there was no way to do all that. It was either stand your ground or don't. Now, I know you're saying to yourself, well, you were kids. That was why that don't count. Well, it counted in my life. Because when the blood was leaking from my head, when there was lumps all over my face, when sangre was pouring down my arm from getting shanked, That counted. It might not count to you, but it counted to me. Okay, I left blood on those hollow grounds. I didn't leave no blood. I don't even smoke that stuff. But I left blood on the hollow grounds. That's what it was. Guard, I did that. I don't care what you say. Get behind me, Nathan. Get behind me. Now, over course of time, what happened was everything started to mellow out. You know, when we first got there, we pulled up. There was riots and melees and one-on-ones and go behind that handball court and fight. And we became adapted to the program that was down south. We had no choice. It wasn't like we wanted to, just like the Southsiders didn't want to up north. You know, when you're placed in an area, it's not the youth authority, it's the California Youth Authority. You're going to go wherever they send you. And we did that. Now, I never boast and brag and act like we were just rolling over people, because there was a lot of incidences where we came up short, and there was some where we won. Yes, straight up. We won the battle, not necessarily the war, but in every fight, you don't take W's or L's. You just take it as it comes. So I became adapted to the program, what was going on. Now, when we would go to the oil, which was called the box or the caja, there would be some people bumping baking soda breath on the door, some people woofing, which always surprised me, because you could see these guys. You can go hit the linea, you can go hit the school area or the yardas or whatever they were, the compas, and see these guys you were talking to. It was a small world. That's it. The same person that you're talking cagada to, you're going to see them in the school area, handle your business there. That didn't stop people from talking. People were throwing up their barrios. People were representing what they're going to do to each other, dry snitching on each other. It just was what it was. And this was on both sides, north and south. It wasn't like only one side was doing it. It was happening everywhere. I remember when I first got to the Caja, my first trip, I got off with a vato named Joker from Lamparas, and it was my first time going to the oil. I tripped out because they had tier tenders. And these tier tenders at the time were Southsiders. They had the AC side, which was the basic oil. They had the Taft side of the Caja, which was a special program, kind of like a shoe. They had Norteños and Bulldogs placed on the Taft side for the most part, and they would put the Southsiders, some of them on Taft and most of them on Nixon, which was like another shoe program. And I remember being on the AC side, which was just your basic oil, and these vatos giving me the blues. They were turning my lights off and on, throwing mop water under my door, spitting in my food, things of that nature. And it was just something you had to deal with. You know, you couldn't tell the placa, hey, go away. You don't get down like that. You just didn't eat, or you worked around it. Spensa la tira, it's just the way it was. Vatos were going hungry in there. All you ate was your sack lunch or your box. They used to give it to us in a box because you didn't have nothing else coming. Now, the facts are, every time I got released from the oil, I handled my business. Not because I thought it was tough or I was bad. It was because I was trying to get the hell up out of there. Period. Eventually, I realized they weren't sending me nowhere. So I just proceeded to program and do what I had to do. And if the funk came to me, well, then we got funk. And that's what it was. Now, this is the one incident I'm going to speak on that changed everything. And if you tune into Incredible Javier, make sure you tap into his channel, because he actually sat down and had a conversation with two Southsiders that were actually there at the moment that this incident went down. This was something that changed Nellis forever. Now, about 94, early 94, when they shipped me out of there, I remember I was surprised. One of my homeboys from Alvaro had just arrived. And I remember me and the homeboy Spanky from Gilas, we actually had to go to Truman, which was like kind of like a reception unit, to go talk to these guys. 10 Northerners had pulled up. I remember walking over there to go talk to these guys. We were going to give them the rundown. Like, don't believe what everyone says. You ain't got to put your shirt on. You ain't got to be no coward. Vatos are going to try to tell you to quit banging and do all this. At the same time, Holmes, it's up to you to be a man and do what you feel like you have to do. But we are going to stand our ground. We've been doing it. We're going to continue to do it. And if you choose to do it, that's cool. If you don't, bella, we don't care, Holmes. That's on you. I remember getting to this dorm. The first thing I noticed was a couple homeboys from Saul that looked like they were about the business. And then, of course, my homeboy from my neighborhood. And he had no choice. He was going to be about the business, because I was going to make him be about the business. So I went and got at him. I was like, don't trip, bro. I'm going to get you on my compa. It's all good. It ain't like they say it is here. We fight, but I mean, it ain't nothing. I say we do that on the guys anyways. Eventually, I was able to get him moved to my unit, and everything was good. The first day that he arrived, I ended up going to the school area and getting off on a couple of dudes who had disrespected me in the line. And that's just what it was. You know, it was an everyday thing. It wasn't nothing to it. Hey, watch out. Let me tie my property, put it in my locker, and you keep your eyes on it, because I ain't going to be back for a couple of days. I'm going to the oil. So I did my little oil trip just as planned, came back. Everything was good. He was getting down with a few cats that didn't like the way he looked. Hey, regularly scheduled program, gente. It wasn't nothing new. Fighting in CYA was normal, right? People could take your win and would try to take your win if they could. But at the same times, man, it was just normal. It's hard to explain it, okay? It was everyday thing. So anyways, I was meeting a lot of gente that I associated with, North and South, that were cool with me. Now, of course, we couldn't blatantly be cool with the Southsiders, but we didn't hide nothing, man. If we had a conversation to speak on, we'd speak on that conversation. I gained a lot of respect both ways with them. They had respect for me because I was down handling my business in their backyard, and I had a lot of respect for them because they were trying to eradicate the roaches, is what they felt from their backyard. Besides, you know what they say, roaches are going to be here to the end of the world. So we were there, and my antennas were flipping and flying. Now, this is facts. In 94 when I left, and I remember that day, the blackest came to my door and they're like, roll it up. I said, no, I don't roll things. I don't roll up. That's not what I do. They said, listen, I also roll it up. I think you're going to go to Preston. And I was happy and I was sad. I was sad because I was leaving a place I had been for almost 3 years and where I had become accustomed to. You know, this was my everyday program. And this is something new to me. Now I'm being moved to another institution that I'm hearing there. It's cracking for reals with the Perro Chatos, with the Fresno Bulldogs. So it's like, okay, everything and all the work that I put in to establish my place here on this compound, my foundation, I have to start over again. Okay, but what I didn't realize was my reputation for handling my business was going to follow me, and that's what was going to save my life and, you know, let me kick it with the righteous homeboys and not the levas. Now, so I handle my business. I roll it up, boom. I remember jumping on the bus with the homeboy Boo from Stockton, and Spooky from Salas was paroling that day. Shout out to my boy Spookio de Casitas. I remember seeing him. I was on the bus. He was getting on down the road. It was his parole day, and I was getting on down the road to Preston, which is located in Ione, California, right by Stockton, Sacramento, somewhere in the middle out there in the country. I said, it's over there by Mill Creek Prison, only we weren't trying to do Mill Creek things. So I pulled up, and that was it. Now, when I left Nellis, I left Nellis. I left Soldados behind. Okay, it wasn't my choice. If it was my choice, I'd have put everyone on the bus, or I would have just stood there. I remember refusing and trying to stay there. But again, like I said, they said they'd snatch me up by my earlobe, get over here, and throw me up on that bus. So I got on down the road. Everything that I had fought for and everything that I had tried to do for these last 2.5 to 3 years was finally accomplished. I was finally getting on. I was finally moving on to my next destination in my journey, you know, being incarcerated. And I'm not going to lie, gente, I didn't want to go. I didn't want to come back up north because at the same time, like I said, I was already used to the Southern program. I was already used to what was going on. I know it sounds crazy. I know it sounds funny. Why would you want to be where vatos are trying to hit you every day and jump you? Hey, that's just the way it was. I say, that's just the way it was. In life, you become accustomed to what you are. You become used to things, and the persecution and oppression becomes nothing. Hey, it is what it is. I'm going to handle my business. I became a soldado. I went from being a young kid to a ward of the state to a soldado who was still a ward of the state. Say that 3 times fast, I say. Anyways, oh, hell no. I get to Preston, and Nellis is behind me. Get behind me, Nellis. Get behind me. And I forget about everything that went on in these last few years, and I start to program in Preston. And then, of course, ultimately, I go to Carl Holton, to which I'm paroled from Carl Holton in late 96. But even before that, there was incidents that were taking place at Nellis. Now, it seems like when I shipped out, a lot of the righteous homeboys like Soldier Boy de Stockton, Bad Boy de Sacra, Boo from Stockton, Smilon from Hanford, so many others, righteous dudes, end up shipping out. And those that were left behind tried to maintain, but times were changing. More Southsiders were coming with bad and ill intentions, and it kept going down. It went down to the point where the last of the Norteños that were there were on a building called Monroe, a compa. Now, there was always Norteños on Cleveland, Monroe, Kennedy, Madison, Washington, Hayes, Adams. These are all facts. We were on pretty much every compa, I think, except for like maybe Tyler. You know, I can't call it Jackson, maybe. Was there Jackson? Yeah, there was. I don't think we were on those 2 compas. But other than that, and that wasn't because we couldn't be, it was because they just never sent us there. But when I left from Madison. So eventually all Norteños went over to Monroe. This is what I was hearing. And it was what it was. Vatos like Batman de Vaisa and certain other individuals were there. I had a couple homeboys from Merced. My homeboy pulled up, JP, and a couple other dudes. Now, same old thing. Same old program. But an incident was about to occur that would take place that would change all that. You know, when I heard the Southsiders speak on Incredible Javier's channel, shout out to Incredible Javier. If you're not tapped in, tap in. He told it righteously, the story. And it's facts, because this was the same story I heard up north. And this is what changed everything. This is what ultimately got all the Norteños shipped out of Nellis. It wasn't a cowardice act. It wasn't something we did. We didn't lock it up or bow down or what people wanted to think. Quite contrary to anything that you may think, it was an administrative move. because it got very dangerous. And this right here, gente, is the incident that took place that made it that dangerous. So there was a lot of norteños on the Taft side. There always was, bulldogs and norteños. And of course, when you're doing program in the oil, or you're doing a program in the oil, like I said, there's going to be a lot of bumping bacon soda breath. People are going to be going back and forth talking a lot. They're going to be arguing. They're going to be disrespecting each other's barrios and neighborhoods and dead homeboys and things of that nature. And it ain't never cool. I said, guard, it ain't cool. I said, this mom thinks it's cool. It ain't cool, right? But it happens, especially when you're a young kid. You're a little rambunctious and funky. And of course, you got Marky Mark over there in the funky bunch. And everyone's going to get funky. So there was a lot of back and forth. Now, at this time, the norteños being the dominant group in the oil, they had the jobs. You know, like I said, when I first got there, the Southsiders were the tier tenors. But now it flipped because there were so many norteños placed in this TAP program, whether it be from fighting or whatever the case may be, they now had the jobs. And they were doing the same thing to the South was doing to us, spitting in their food, disrespecting them. Now that I think about it, a whole bunch of babosos doing baboso things. I thought about that when it was the South doing it to me, and I think about the same thing when it's the North doing it to them. A whole bunch of unnecessary drama. You don't spit in the next man's food, man. Let him eat. I said, let him get his strength. Come out and see you one time for your mind. I don't know. That's my mentality. But I ain't going to lie. At that time, it was what it was. I reckon you could dick someone's spoon up here. Watch out. Wipe your chowder all over the spoon. Eat that. I say, oh, hell no. Right? So anyways, people are going at it that way. That's a way of waging war. Battle. I'm going to throw my people all over your food. Look at orderly, go spinach. Right? And there you go. Eat your cabbage. I said, and the Southsiders were stewing and dwelling in the lab 24/7. Imagine sitting in the oil, watching a guy spit in your food or doing bad things, putting orderly moco time, right? You're going to get mad. You're going to get upset. And what happened was this group of individuals became upset. And they started to form a plan on how to get back at these norteños, right? And get back they truly did. So on one day, right after Thanksgiving, I think it was 2013, I believe, or 2003, Spencer. It was in 2003. What they did was they set up a good plan. They set up a great plan, actually. And two of these guys, or three of them, were able to get pulled up out of their cell to clean up, the floors. What happened is they had flooded the floors, and this was a good tactic, man. They were smart. They were playing chess when everyone else was playing checkers or Monopoly. These vatos flooded their floors and then was able to get pulled out by the COs, or the GSs is what they were called at that time, to clean up the floors. Of course, when this GS, who was a new GS, pulled them out, they jumped on him and stabbed him over 54 times. Now, when this GS was stabbed that many times, he went into shock and they were able to get his keys. And what did they do with those keys? And you guys got to understand, the makeup of this whole, it was one big L shape. You had cells on one side, cells on another, probably about a 5-foot distance in between the cells. And then as you walk around the corner, that was the Taft side. They were able to take these keys and go unlock doors of other Southsiders and bring them out. Now, everybody was strapped up. According to the stories I heard, and I heard them from the North and the South, they were strapped up. Most of the weaponry at that time, I remember in Ellis, if you were able to get some good metal, it was what it was. But most of them were bed springs, right? You would straighten them out. You had a pico de gallo, is what we used to call it. And orale, we were trying to pico you out. They were able to open up a couple of norteños doors. One to which they stabbed several times in the arms, leg, torso area. And another one, they put a pencil through his eye. Now, I remember us hearing about this up north, and I remember thinking two things. Damn, I'm glad I left. You know what I mean? And the second thing was, wow, they really did that. They went to their breaking point. They were really that frustrated where they decided that if for no other reason to overtake the staff just to get to individuals. Now, it happens. If you mess with a man or even a kid for so long and you do so much to them, man, they're going to reach a breaking point where they're willing to do whatever they have to do. Now, of course, after this happened, several of these individuals were sent to prison behind this. They caught charges. And it was the second real big, gigantic incident of stabbing that happened in the oil, in my time. I remember the first one being the Bulldogs when they booked Dopey and they had to meta-flight him up out of there, man. They almost killed him. It was an ugly situation. And then, of course, this incident that had happened after I was gone. Now, I was gone. So I heard a lot of vatos talk about it, and they're like, oh, the norteños didn't walk the line. They weren't doing this. No. All the ones that have walked the line and were able to earn their way back up north and finally we're up out of there. We were already gone. We were already doing our thing. We were already functioning in different places. And who was there, felt the repercussions for this action. Now, it changed everything. When an incident like this takes place, immediately they lock everything down and the administration is going to have to figure it out. And what they did was they decided to ship all the norteños out of there, and one remained. One remained. He kind of flew under the radar the whole time we were there, and that was the homeboy Batman de Raza. Shout out some respects. That's a real one. So when I hear these stories about, hey, Batman was the only norteño walking the line, he was for a minute. At the end, you know, he was the only one there. I guess he was embraced and respected by all. But it wasn't like he was there, the only one that ever went there. You know, we all shed our blood. We all have a history there. A history that it seems like people try to muddy or overshadow or take away from us. And I can't allow that to be. You know, like I said, I shed too much blood and I gave up too much blood to just let that go. But one thing is for sure, as an older man now looking back at them incidences, I think to myself, wow, just how serious it was for individuals to hit a cop 54 times, go into cells, hit guys. You got to understand, these guys were throwing up mattresses, screaming, fighting, you know, for their life. I can only imagine, you know. There were situations where people would be bumping baking soda breath when I was in the hole back and forth. And I would tell my homeboys, hey, bro, let that go. We don't get down like that. And there would be other Southsiders that felt the same way. Shout out to Smokey from Grape and Crazy Boy from Florencia, rest in peace. Real ones that would just be like, hey, we don't do that, bro. If you need to handle your business, handle it. But that is the incident that actually took place. It was one of the most craziest incidences in Nellis. I know I don't give it justice when I speak on it because I wasn't actually right there, but we heard about it all through Northern and Southern California. And I remember we even got off in Preston behind that. The homeboys got off in Preston behind that. By this time I was already on the calles, but they got off behind that. And I remember hearing about it and thinking to myself, wow, you know, I had a homeboy from my neighborhood that knew the homeboy that got stabbed. He was from Merced. He was like, did you hear what they did in Nellis? You were in Nellis, son? I said, yeah. He said, man, they're over there booking people. And I was like, for reals? Actually, I think the incident might have happened in 97. I think it happened in 97. I said 2003, Spencer. I got mixed up. I was already in prison. It was in 97 when the incident happened. So I remember I just got out of YA when hearing about this. And I remember the homeboys throughout the state were getting off because of that up north. And it was just a crazy situation that happened. Anyways, with that being said, gente, you know, that's the incident that changed Nellis. That's the incident that actually removed norteños from Nellis. Then eventually over time, Nellis was shut down. We all know that story. With that being said, I hope that you move smooth with a purpose. I hope that you get everything that you want coming to you. I don't tell those stories to ignite a fire between North and South. I tell the stories because that's actual factual facts that happen, you know, within our brown cultura, you know, North and South, incidents that took place that could have been prevented, but ultimately weren't, you know, and that is why the norteños were removed out of Nellis. It wasn't because people punked them or beat them up and told them to get up out of there. The Vatos weren't going out like that. Just like the South Side were not going out like that up north. They were handling their business and establishing. That's just what it was. Anyways, if you like this, hit me with the like and subscribe and a thumbs up. There's a notification bell right there. You can pet it, touch it, lick it, you know, just tickle it. Whatever you want to do, it helps me out. If not, you can hit me with the thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head that wears this magic crown. Now, I'm going to disappear for a minute here. But what I'm going to do is let you guys know I'm all about the gente together. Sprinkle the woods in, bro. You thought I forgot, huh? Can I get a shot of coffee, Gunner? Yeah, you can get a shot of coffee. We ain't going against the guns. Respects to everybody. The gun. Bang, bang.